Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be showing you how to make a pumpkin using a knitting machine. So I'm going to be using my Addi Express King Size, but you could also use the Sentro 48, that would also work for this. And all you will need really is some orange yarn, and then you could make leaves or stems with brown and green yarn, or you could even use just like an actual stick. I've seen other people do that and it looks quite effective. But yes, so it's super simple. All we need is the tube setting or the circular setting, and we don't need any waste yarn. Very simple. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm gonna cast on in my orange yarn like normal. So this is just some I had lying around that I've not used for ages. So I've just brought you in a bit closer so you can see what I'm doing rather than see me. So I'm starting off with my orange yarn and I'm in the tube setting or the circular setting. So I'm gonna place my yarn under the first white hook, and then the tail end is going into the center. And then all I'm doing is turning the handle clockwise slowly and moving my yarn in front and behind. So I'm just alternating all the way around. Just want to make sure the yarn is getting caught under every other hook. If you need a more detailed video tutorial on casting on, working the machine, anything like that, check out the description and there'll be everything you need right there. Okay, so I'm nearly back to the start now. So I'm finishing with these 3 black hooks. So I should be going behind the last black hook because we went in front of the first white one. So I'm opening my thread gauge and placing my yarn inside. And then all we're going to do is start turning clockwise again and just start making rounds. I'm going to set my row counter back to 0 just so I can keep track. There we are, and then I'm just going to make rounds. I'm starting off slow to make sure all my stitches are caught and that none of them are popping off the end, especially since we're not using waste yarn this time. If you don't know what waste yarn is, that will also be in the description. And you can find a link to my Amazon storefront if you're interested in any of the machines. It is an affiliate link, just so you're aware. There's my first round done. And all I'm going to do is keep on making these rounds. Super duper simple. Just keep turning your handle and making those rounds until you have your desired length. So if you want a taller pumpkin, make a bit of a longer tube. If you want a short and stubby one, you do whatever you prefer. Feel free to experiment. Yeah, I will come back to you when we've got a bit of length on our tube. Okay, so this is 40 rounds and I have about 6 inches of fabric, and I am going to cast this off now and start forming it into the pumpkin. But like I say, you can make it much taller if you want. Just feel free to play around. You can always do a mock-up, see what your yarn looks like, because obviously everything's different. I have used about 50 grams here of double knit, just less than 50 grams. But yeah, so I am now going to cast off. So once I'm past that black hook, I'm taking my yarn out of the thread gauge, closing it back up, so it's hanging there between the white and black one there. And now I'm just going to turn for another round. Because I've taken my yarn out of the gauge, it's not working any of the stitches. So this is kind of helping me release them from the hook. Then just before I get back to that last one, I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to take a yarn needle. Usually you get these with your machines, and I'm taking the leftover yarn. If you need to, you can cut it, but just make sure you leave a tail if you've got too much left that you can't just thread this on. So I'm threading my yarn needle there, and what I'm going to do is the next stitch I'm going to start picking these up onto my needle and threading my yarn through. So I'm going to pick up every stitch all the way around. And again, I do have a tutorial on how to cast off these machines in the description. Yeah, just going to cast off every stitch. So once I'm almost at the end, I'm just going to turn my machine the rest of the way, and I can pick up these last few stitches and take my piece out of the machine. So now I've got all of my stitches cast off, so I'm left with just a tube like this. So to start forming this into the pumpkin, it's super simple. Just like we would do for a hat, we are going to pull this yarn tight, so the one that we have cast off with, so that's going to gather all of the stitches together, and this is going to form the base of our pumpkin. There you can see it almost looks like a little hat now. You can see it's closed up, and then just to secure that, we're going to put a few stitches . So what I've done is I've kept mine the right way out so that you can see I've got the knit pattern on the outside. So that's the right side, and this is the wrong side, the purl side. But if you prefer the purl side, put it on the outside. It's totally up to you, it's your project. So I'm just stitching at the bottom, and then I will go ahead and weave my ends in. Just tuck them onto the inside. There we are. So you can tie that in a knot if you need, or if you've woven them in, whatever you need to do. So that's all secure now, and then to do the top, it's very similar. So you will have the tail end from when you cast on, and you can literally just pull that and it will gather it up just like the end. But before we do that, we're going to want to stuff this. So I'm going to pop some fibre fill in here. Just going to do that until there's no gaps and it feels nice and squishy. Here we are, so I've got that all stuffed. You can kind of see it forming into the shape now. So I am just going to pull that closed, gather that all in, and again I will get my yarn needle and sew the top closed, and then we'll talk about how to make the little ridges. And I'm going to use this as my top and this as my bottom, so I think this looks a bit neater. Actually, what you can do before you sew it up is, if in this opening you can put like a twig, or some people put a cinnamon stick, which I think is a nice idea because it kind of will be like a almost like a scented thing, I guess. You can pop that into the hole at the top and then sew it closed, or glue it in if you need it, but that's just an option that you can do. So here is my pumpkin shape, and I think that is, I quite like the height on that one, quite like how it's going to look. So now to make the little ridges, what you're going to need is you're going to need some more of the yarn you used, or you can use contrast colour if you prefer, maybe like a yellow or something, or a brown. So you're going to cut some strips, and you want this long enough to go around your shape plus a bit of excess. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do. You're going to need 6 or 8 of these, depending on how big your pumpkin is or how many sections you want to divide it into. So I'm just going to show you here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my yarn underneath and make sure it's laid across the middle here where you sewed it up, and wrap it around the middle of the pumpkin. So you can see it's kind of dividing it into two halves. And then all I'm going to do to form my shape is tie that, and you want to pull it quite tight. If you can see, that makes like a little ridge, so you can make that as deep as you want to. And then I'm going to secure my knot a couple of times, and then what you'll do is weave in those ends. So then I'm going to get another piece and I'm going to lay it the opposite way, so going across the other way. So it's making like a cross shape at the bottom, just make sure that's centered, and then you're kind of going to be dividing it into quarters. So this is super simple, a real beginner friendly project. So I am using 8, which is why I've gone this way, but if you were using 6, if you wanted less of these segments, you could do it one way and then more diagonally rather than going into quarters, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm doing 8. So you can see it's formed like 4 different sections. So I'm going to do this one more time around here and then around here, so that it's going to form into 8 little sections. So here you can see it's now divided into those 8 little segments, and it looks a lot more like a pumpkin now. So I've tied off my ends and woven in any loose ends. So now it's ready to add a stem, leaves, vines, whatever you want to do. You can make stuff out of felt, you can crochet your own, or you can use buttons, whatever you fancy. But I'm gonna go finish this off and then we'll finish off our video. So here is my finished pumpkin. I decided to crochet a little stem for the top. I didn't include it in this tutorial because I know that a lot of people who have knitting machines don't crochet, so I didn't want people to feel like they had to follow it to the letter. You can kind of be very free with how you finish this off. You could even use felt and make it into a jack-o'-lantern by adding a little face to it. Like I say, you can make it the size and shape that you'd like. If you want to create one similar to this, I used double knit yarn and I did 40 rounds, as I said before. But yeah, it might differ with your yarn, but this is just a super easy, customizable tutorial. You can make this project in less than an hour. It makes great Halloween decor. If you made a really big one, you could make a cushion, I guess, and put a button in the middle. That might be cute. Yeah, it's totally personalized to you, and it's super simple. It's a great beginner project that's not just a hat, but it's assembled very similarly to a hat. So would you try this? Let me know. And if you do and you want to take a picture, feel free to tag me on Instagram or TikTok. All my links will be in the description below. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Just popping in at the end here to say that if you do crochet and you're interested in trying out a few pumpkin patterns, I have just released a pattern booklet with King Cole. I've done a few before, but I thought I'd pop a quick promotion in here in case you're interested. I'll link it down in the description. It's not an affiliate link, but yeah, just in case you would like to try anything like that.